All right. Here we are, Meryl.
Here we are.
We're back. Welcome to the Legacy Podcast. This is a podcast about building your legacy as a family and raising Christ-centered children and having Christ-centered marriages for the glory of God. Today, we have a pretty cool episode. It's on students and technology, kids and technology. And we're going to be talking about navigating faith in a digital world. And so here's our main question, Meryl. How can we help students develop a healthy, Christ-centered relationship with technology? You think this is going to be a good one?
It is going to be. I mean, honestly, I think we're missing our token student guy. So
That's right.
We'll dance around students, but we can probably also talk kids, parents.
I got some kids.
All people.
I've thought a little bit about this.
Yeah.
Probably need to think more about it. You might get in real time my future parenting techniques being developed.
Yeah. Yeah. So what social media do you use? Do you use social media at all?
I typically don't use social media. Social media was a big part of my life for several years, and it just became a place that like holiness wasn't being cultivated in my life. And so I stepped away from all the platforms except Facebook. And primarily I'm on Facebook, not even to engage with friends and family, but to help promote church stuff. It's primarily a work engine for me. But I used to be fairly involved in it, and it wasn't a great fit for me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I get that. I have Facebook primarily because I just really like to keep up with people, and having friends in different states, it's kind of nice to see their kids' first day of school picture or whatever's happening. And then I feel like on Instagram, I mostly send people funny videos and then receive funny videos back. Not a huge poster, mostly because I don't think that much about it. I'm not that entirely interesting. Like, I don't know that anyone's really going to be like, what is she doing every day that we need to know about? I don't think I could ever be a blogger. And like,
I just realized I might be in an old person form of social media. Are group chats like social media?
Like on the phone?
Yeah. Like when you've got like 10, 15 people all like tossing
I've never thought of that
around,
as social media.
You know? I hadn't either. Is that social media? We need producer. Thumbs up or thumbs down. I'm going to say it is. And I think it tells you how old you are if that's your primary form of social media.
Yeah. I don't have any of the new stuff. Like, I don't have TikTok. I don't have Snapchat. No. There's probably other ones I don't know about. Yeah, I'm definitely.
China's already listening to me on so many devices. Older. I didn't need to give them 2 more.
Okay. Let me tell you what one of my concerns is. Because I will admit, one thing I do on Facebook, I look people up. I look people up.
You look them up?
Yeah.
What are you looking for?
Anything. If someone's like, hey, I'm going on a date with this person, I'm like, who are they? I want to know. And I've always been a little concerned that I'll accidentally type their name in the "what are you thinking" box instead of the search box.
Oh, that's funny.
Like one of my biggest fears.
Is that a thing?
That it'll just be like, Meryl Vaughn is Steve Jones. Like, I really worry about that. Yeah.
That is a new activated fear. I'm afraid I'm not opening Facebook anymore.
Don't do it.
No, it's fascinating though, because social media is such a revolutionary thing that our generation has gone through. When I was growing up, the internet was this weird sounding dial-up noise in the other room, and you basically killed someone's phone call or you killed their internet connection anytime the two got crossed. I remember all sorts of random stuff like Napster and LimeWire and waiting days for like a couple MP3 files down. It was such a different level of access.
So
and now, we've walked through this technological revolution where, the phone in my pocket is one of the most powerful computers to ever exist in human history. It's wild.
Did you have, I'm trying to think. So when I was in middle school, maybe I had AOL Instant Messenger.
Yeah.
I wasn't allowed. I could only the computer was in my parents' room. So they were always around. Like, I didn't never have private chat time or anything like that.
I got into trouble on AOL.
Yeah.
Me and my friends used to go in there and troll chat rooms
Oh, okay, yeah.
and like just say obnoxious things.
I feel like there's that, and then I never had a MySpace, but I did have a Zanga, the MySpace Lite.
Interesting.
version.
I had a full on MySpace and I never touched Zanga.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know why Zanga was I don't know. I don't know what came about with that. I probably had it for like a year and then I was like, yeah, I don't have anything to say.
I want to know what happened. Like I know MySpace still exists, and I actually, to my like torment, I won't say that on air. MySpace still exists. That surprised me.
Yeah.
And what do you call it? What happened to them? Like I thought like the customizability of MySpace was so much better than Facebook when Facebook came out, and then MySpace is just gone. It's not a thing anymore.
Yeah, I don't know.
Like,
I feel like I remember when, I guess our generation, we kind of have been through all of them, right? Like
Yeah.
we were there for the comeuppance of social media. Twitter, I remember when Twitter came out, one of my friends in college was like, you've got to get this. Like you say stuff, but in like a limited number of characters. And so for a while I tweeted. I don't tweet anymore. X now.
just
whatever it
tweeting
is.
to the
Yeah.
universe, like
Just random tweeting.
today food.
I wish I had like a list of my tweets that we could read right here, right now, but I don't know that I could confidently sign back
Dude,
in.
I got heavy into Twitter.
Yeah.
I was really big into Twitter for a season, and yeah, that's a wild place.
You know, Darren always teases me about my brevity. Maybe it's because I was a tweeter.
You are the OG tweeter.
You know, I
It was
had
built
a
for your
limited number
personality.
of characters.
I mean, it
Which
is
work.
wild though. Like us millennials, I remember rotary phones,
Yep.
and I remember the first flip phone. I remember when Blackberries were cool.
Oh, I had one.
Oh, dude,
that little
I had
roller
a-
ball and the
Heck
light
yeah.
that beeped when you had a text.
You remember the game you could play, the little bubble pop?
Oh, yes.
Yeah, I was
Yeah.
so good at that game. That was a good game. Where are we going with this?
Now that
Okay.
we've reminisced
Now that
about all
we've
of our
reminisced,
technological experiences.
All right, one more. How old were you when Facebook came out? Do you remember?
Oh gosh, I remember Facebook was only for college students. But I think they opened it up maybe my senior year because I think I had one going into college.
Nice.
So probably like 18.
Yeah, I think I was in my junior year when I got my Facebook. I remember when I was 16, I think it launched somewhere when I was 15 or 16. And my college friends were like talking about it.
Yes,
I was like
my
trying,
sister had one because she's older than I am. She had gone. So
like pretending to be at LSU. That was my goal to get in.
I do think, though, just to kind of shift, like we went through all of the different technologies, but I think it's different because kids are born into the platforms now. You know,
Yeah.
like they didn't know life before social media. So for me, it's not a completely normal construct to share everything that I do online. But I feel like for this generation, that is how you communicate. That is what you do. That is how you cultivate your friendships. It's primarily lived out through social media.
Well, and it's a good observation to make that we were exposed to it as a new thing.
Yes.
And who doesn't like the brand new thing, right? And so there was a ton of excitement in our generation over new modes of communication, new tools, the ability to share pictures and thoughts and to be known in a way that you currently hadn't been known. Everything was done in these social stigmas in high school, and then Facebook kind of blew that up.
Yeah.
I didn't have to exist in the bubble of my own town. I could be a multinational known person. And we just didn't know what it was. I think we're still in a phase where we're still figuring out what it's doing to us. But
Yeah, I
but
think
back
that's
when we
fair.
got it, we didn't even know what the tool was. We were
Right.
playing with a brand new toy. And so what exists today is a series of marketing ventures to see what we like. And I think this is kind of my first jumping point is social media, technology has an ability to amplify what is in a person. I think that's what I noticed about social media. It was like if you were into something or if you wanted to be seen a certain way, you could amplify that thing about yourself. And so technology, it has this amplification quality where if I'm a person who's really, really into missions and the gospel, chances are I've posted a picture this week that says, like this if you love Jesus. And like, you know, you become and you amplify that part about it yourself. If you're highly insecure and you want people to see you in a certain light, you probably took 30, 40 pictures, posted the perfect one, got really depressed when it only got a certain amount of likes. It it amplifies our insecurities and it amplifies our kind of vices, you know? And so it seems, at least from like, I don't know, 20 years of watching it develop, it's like, it feels like it amplifies the thing you want, you know?
Yeah. And I also think it lives on, you know, like I just think about 6th or 7th grade when I said or did something really dumb, wore a terrible outfit, whatever. After a week, that was gone. It was out of people's minds, right? But now, like, things are kind of, you can delete things, but it just, things are around a lot more, or things go viral, or whatever the case may be, right? So I think it's a lot harder in that regard that your mistakes live on. Like, I will say, the whole cancel culture thing, when people would go back and like 4 years ago, this picture that you posted leads me to believe that you are this, this, and this. And so now I'm going to cancel you. I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm really glad my mistakes aren't like on the internet somewhere for people to find, because I would have probably been canceled 18 times just because we do dumb stuff when we're in high school and college, you know? So, yeah, I think that's been an interesting thing too, that because we always, well, I guess not always, but like, people grow and change, our beliefs change, our value systems change. And when things, your picture from 4 years ago doesn't reflect that, and then someone's going to call you out for it, there's not a lot of grace in that.
That's totally true. So we want to talk about some goals today. This is actually kind of fun, just opening the pot and thinking about it. But we want to recognize the impact of screens and social media on identity, relationships, and faith. So we're going to talk for a little bit about students and how that might impact them, kids, how that might impact them, encouraging honest conversations between parents and students about digital life, and maybe just asking the question, is digital life a requirement? Is it a requirement? I don't know.
That's a good question.
That's a pretty good foundational question. And then we'll offer some practical tips for discipling students in the digital age. And we'll hopefully incorporate the Bible, you know, and some good scripture.
Well, and speaking of that, let's talk like technology and spiritual rhythms, because I know, like, even just, it's easy when you wake up in the morning to just grab your phone and start diving into whatever's happening in the day. So even learning to adjust our rhythms to remember that that's not maybe the first thing that we need to do during the day. But technology, we can't say an all good, all bad situation, right? Like, it's very nuanced, because there's also great apps out there that are used to help people study and engage in the word, or podcasts or whatever. So I think there can be some really good spiritual rhythms that involve technology. But when technology supersedes the spiritual rhythms, that's where it gets to be a problem, right?
We probably need a good basic definition of technology, because this is where I think if people get frustrated with the conversation around digital media and technology, it's because we so quickly run away from what technology is. Mm-hmm. Like, my toothbrush is a piece of technology. My shoes are a piece of technology. Technology is good insofar as it helps you.
Right.
You know what I mean? And so it's simply a tool, a mechanism that's supposed to help increase the quality of your life. And so if someone were to say, like, hey, don't put your shoes on in the morning, you need to really feel the ground beneath your feet if you want to be really in touch, we'd say, you know, like, this helps me walk over gravel. Mm-hmm. Like, I don't need to feel the gravel to get from point A to point B. That's not quite what we're going to be talking about today. So it's like a cell phone, a computer, your house, like, technology in general. I tend to think it is a good thing when used for the purpose of increasing the quality of your life. And that's kind of my basic definition. What do you think?
Yeah. I mean, I think of technology as the tool. I think when in general referring to technology in this podcast is more like all of the apps and the access that come along with the tool.
The tools inside the tool.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. What it comes equipped with.
The Swiss Army knife of digital technology.
Yes. Yeah. So I do think it's really interesting talking about identity. When you can see everyone else's life, it is super easy to make comparisons, right? And so I think the formation of identity for our kids has to be so much more difficult because we're usually not posting the hard parts of life. And I feel like there's been kind of a trend lately of people posting like a no makeup selfie, which I'm like, that's not a hard part of life. That's just like letting your skin breathe. But, you know, like sharing the parts of life that aren't perfect, the parts of life that are sad or are difficult or are a struggle. But a lot of times that's not what we see. We tend to see when other people's lives are going really well.
Yeah.
And so it can create this skewed perspective of, oh my goodness, like I'm always struggling and this person always has it together. The never always vocabulary, you know,
That's
like
right.
we can get really into that when we constantly see other things. Another thing that I think is really, well, I'll save that one actually for later. I'm going to dive into a different kind of technology tool here in a little bit. But yeah, I think it's harder. I think there must also be, I don't have this pressure. I do not have a pressure to post things. I'm not like someone's waiting for me to post. That does not happen to me. But I imagine for our kids, there probably is an expectation of putting something out there. Or I have to keep my Snapchat streak. Or I have to do, you know, like all of these different things, that there's a pressure that comes with their online life that we just really didn't have.
Yeah. I mean, it creates this weird positive feedback loop. I put something out there, I get positive feedback. It makes me want to do it again and again. As I get more and more feedback, it becomes more and more addicting. I get dopamine releases from seeing people liking my stuff. So then I'm starting to do more and more stuff to get attention. And at the end of the day, I mean, if I understand the science correctly, like really social media is just a giant dopamine hit. Like it's really like, I'm not doing it for the reasons I say I'm doing it, or most people aren't. Even when they say like, you know, and I do believe there's people who do it because they want to connect. I know these people.
Yeah.
You're one of them. But then there's people who say that, and I'm like, I'm watching the way they use social media from the other end of the line.
Yeah.
And I'm like, this person is obsessed with themselves. You know, like it's weird. And I think that person has no idea they come off as self-obsessed because they're in this very padded positive feedback loop where it's like, I'm posting about myself all the time. People like it. And then you gain this unique, concentrated following of people. And you don't realize that you're actually presenting an image as well
Yeah.
of you presenting your image. And that image is probably more real than the image you're presenting.
Yeah.
You know, and so I'm always wondering, and maybe this is the inception level of social media. I'm like, do I come off like that as a pastor? Like when I post a Bible verse and I'm intentionally doing it because I want to stir people for Jesus, do I come off as that guy who's posting a Bible verse to be seen posting a Bible verse because he's a pastor? It's like,
Yeah. You get in your own loop.
I get
about
my
it.
own loop. I'm like, oh gosh, like I don't like it.
Yeah. I think really we were kind of pre-discussing before we started our recording about technology and apps, social media, all of the things. And there are so many positives even. I mean, I know there's some instances in other countries that are closed where social media is the primary use for the gospel being shared. So there are some great things happening too. In the same way that a tool can be really positive, it can also be really negative. So it's hard. I think a lot of times we do have an all or nothing thinking, like, you know, my kid cannot have a phone, or they cannot be on YouTube, or they cannot have this app. And sometimes there are apps they straight up just don't need to have.
That's right.
But there can be some really positive and empowering and impactful things that happen along with these tools as well. I think the big thing that we maybe need to talk about with parents is how do we engage students in what is an appropriate use of our time? What is an appropriate tool that we use? Are you allowing access of yourself to people that maybe don't need access? Are you accessing things
That's
you
right.
don't need to access? I think it all comes down to the parameters more than the tools themselves.
Yes,
when
absolutely.
it comes to
we
parents.
have to define the goal of technology because what's going to happen is kid's going to come up to you and say, Dad, I got to have this. Got to have it. Why do you need it? Well, because all my friends are connecting on there and I want to connect socially. The question you have to start walking your student through and probably just parent your child through is, tell me why that's a good thing. Ethically, we as parents have to have thought through, how are you going to use this tool, and how's this tool going to increase your social standing with your friends while not decreasing the value of your life because of the cost ratio. And this is it's going to be a battle, because the reality is your value assumptions on what is good for your kid are not the same value assumptions they're making.
Right.
But it's also the same reason why you fed your kid vegetables and why they demanded candy. It's the same exact thing. It's just a different source. And so, yeah, I think having open conversations with your teenagers about what is lurking behind social media and behind the technology, a lot of times, and I feel like this has been highlighted a lot in recent history in our culture, but there's such a drastic unveiling of human trafficking in the world today that it's bananas. And so even the secular community, before they've ever thought about God, are saying this is dangerous, and whatever good it might have done, it's offset by the potential risk.
Yeah.
And I think that means that you're going to have to probably expose your kids to some pretty heavy topics. And you may have to watch The Sound of Freedom with your 13-year-old.
Yeah.
And say, look, this is what we're trying to protect you from. We didn't make this up. We're not trying to control your life. We're trying to actually prevent people from taking it.
Right. And I think a lot of times kids, because they haven't heard of or experienced some of these challenging things, look at it as, this is just my parent cramping my style and saying no to me. But I had a kid in preteen ministry, so I think she was in 5th grade, that we took to camp one year. And while we were cleaning up from camp, I was like sweeping the floor and kind of overhearing some conversations that were happening. And she was telling the other girls that she had been talking online with like a 17-year-old girl who always wanted to know, like, so what are you doing? Where do you live? What are your interests? And so I'm like, sweep, 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 like getting closer, like to this conversation. And I was talking to her about it, and I was like, hey, sounds really interesting. What are you talking about?
Yeah.
And she was fully convinced. I mean, had no qualms about this person asking all these questions. And I was like, hey, I'm really concerned because, be honest with you, most 17-year-old girls aren't like talking to middle schoolers, like that's probably not how they're spending their time.
Yeah.
So you need to be a little wary of who you're talking to. Does your parent know that you're talking to this person? No. So we had to have that conversation.
Yeah.
Because I think a lot of times kids, even if they know about it, she's like, well, my dad told me not to talk to strangers, but this isn't a stranger. This is my friend. And so there's even like this, it couldn't happen to me or wouldn't happen to me mentality with kids too, that I think we have to tackle a little bit, that, hey, this is a common and prevalent thing. And it is easy to be tricked because the people who are doing the tricking know how to do it well. And so I think we do have to explain a little bit of that too. So Fairfield is a partner or supporter of Elijah Rising. And I went on a van tour. If you don't know what they are, it's an organization that really dives into human trafficking. And they sell this book called The Tech Trap. I have not read it yet. I will admit that to everyone here. So I can't say like I've read this whole thing. But this is something that they sell there because it's talking through pitfalls of modern technology, apps, different things that people are using for that. And so if you have questions about that as a parent, it may be good to pick up a copy of something like that and just kind of dig through and figure out, what are we dealing with? What are some of the pitfalls, so that we can know and be aware? Absolutely.
And as you were talking, this thought came to mind. Online social media and technology, like, because it's so contained, it is potentially a place for me to be isolated from people who would help me, from people who know my heart, who would see me walk well with Jesus, who would protect me from things that would cause me harm. And so in that sense, if I can think of technology as potentially walking into a room by myself, when I'm alone, I'm more susceptible to temptation, to sin, and to the schemes of the enemy. And so the verse that just came to mind is that 1 John 5:7 says, but if we walk in the light as he is in the light, we have fellowship with one another. And I think like there's a couple thoughts here. One, light in the book of 1 John is typically referring to truth.
Yes.
And living according to what is, not by what I'm making up. So I don't say I'm not a sinner. I say, yes, I have sinned and I need forgiveness. But then I'm going to follow the truth of God as he reveals in his word. So when it says we want to walk in the light, might be a way of saying, I want to be known as I am. I don't want a version of me that exists that no one knows. If that person is unknown, that person has a power. There's power for my sin when I'm unknown.
Yeah.
And so if we walk in the light as he's in the light, we have fellowship with one another. So if I put those two things together, it says, how do I walk in the light? I can't be alone. I've got to let someone else walk into dark places with me.
Yeah.
And so as for me as a parent, I mean, I'll tell you what we're going to do for my kids. There will never be a time while they live under my roof where they have private access to something online. There won't be private access. In the same way they can't lock their doors, in the same way that I know where they're at as children and will know where they're at as teenagers. The reason why those things exist is not because of privacy, but because an understanding that when you're alone in the dark, that's where dark stuff happens.
Yeah. Very true. So I think too, we also have to, as parents or adults with influence, we also have to model well what we're asking people to do. You know, like I can tell my kids to put their phone down, but if I'm distractedly scrolling on mine the whole time, probably not setting the best example for them of like
conviction
of what that looks like. I know there's several couples that I've talked to recently who like they plug their phones in the kitchen. They don't plug them in their room next to their nightstand so that they can't turn and scroll instead of having a conversation with each other. Like I know parents who make their kids do that so that they can't stay up late, you know, like scrolling through their phone alone or having these conversations, which I think that's like a great idea.
Have you seen the Amazon timed lock boxes for cell phones?
No.
This is amazing that this is a thing that gets sold. But it's a piece of Tupperware with a lid on it, and you set a timer on it, and everyone puts their phone in. You put the lid on it, and it locks itself.
Wow.
For the amount of time that's on the timer. And so
very interesting.
Some families will get one of these things, and at night, everyone throws their phone in. And 8 hours later, it will unlock. And
I kind of love it. I mean,
it's kind of cool.
I live in my own room by myself, and I plug my phone in right next to my nightstand. And you know what? There's nights when I've stayed up way too late scrolling, or I wake up and I start scrolling immediately. So I'm like, that is a practice I could put into place in order to model for other people that is something that
there
would
are
be
some
beneficial.
Amazing YouTube shorts of people breaking these things open to get to their phones. It's so good.
Meanwhile, I'm like, I want to go on a cruise with no cell reception or internet access at all. Like, get me off of the grid. I'm
so antisocial. If I go on those things, I just bring books. I'm not on my phone, but I'm in some other world one way or another.
That's funny. I do think that, I don't know. I do think modern technology capabilities like social media have made it developmentally harder for people to have in-person conversations. I really believe that. I actually was listening to, I don't know, it was on the radio, a podcast, something, and they were talking about like the phenomenon of online dating, which could be a whole second segment. But like people don't know how to talk to each other anymore because we don't approach people all the time and say things, or like it's easier to send a text or an email than it is to call someone, you know, like that kind of thing.
Do we need to throw that on a future episode? Like college dating apps are a thing that probably need to be discussed.
I'll discuss it. I am a single person. I have been on dating apps.
I want to hear.
They're terrible.
Well,
they're not all terrible. There are nice people, but it is this whole, we could have 2 episodes at least.
Literally the first article I pulled up today around human trafficking was the opening line was, I got recruited off of a dating app. And I was like, that's not about today's podcast, but interesting.
Well, I think it would be a good thing. Even just dating and relationships in general would be kind of a fun episode, because the level of like wisdom and discretion you have to have in those moments, you have to have a pretty like high bar and a pretty tough like screening system.
I would be so afraid that I would be talking to someone just plugged into ChatGPT,
Oh yeah.
where they just copy and pasted my answer and said, write me an answer that is most compelling to the way this person seems to be talking.
Yeah. It's very, very interesting. 10 out of 10 do not like it, but it is also like people don't like engage with other people anymore. You know?
It's fascinating.
Yeah. That's another time.
Yeah. Well, we're diving off topic, but I guess like one of the things, and I think this is what's hard for our generation, which is going to be kind of just an obscure question for the next one, is we transitioned from non-technologically focused to being totally technologically focused. And so I think there's something built into the millennial, especially us older millennials, that are like, I do remember the day when this wasn't a thing.
Yeah.
I remember when it wasn't, and I remember being happy. You know, it's like, and now there's a lot of stress around it, and all your business models involve it, and all of the campaigns seem to focus on it. But ultimately, like, all it really is a hyper version of advertising. Like, it's, you know, so there's the thing that's addictive and I'm engaging with. But I also understand from a business perspective that it's like, this is television in 4K. This is television in 4D. It's like the same forces that draw you to your TV are the same forces that are drawing you to these places. You're receiving some sort of a loop, and it gets you to spend time looking at ads, you know. And so they're giving you something you want. You become the commodity that they're trading for ad revenue. And so there's all these different realities happening at once. Our kids will never know a time where that's not their reality.
Right.
And so I don't know what it was like before TVs. I don't know what it was like before radio.
Right.
You know, and those were both huge technological advances from the printing press. And then there was a time when you didn't have books. Like, one dude in the town had books, and he was rich, and he didn't teach you how to read. He asked for your tax money, you know, and it was, it's hard to know where this thing ends and how it develops. Books led to the Protestant Reformation. That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
You know, that was a good thing. My optimism is that Christians, when they engage rightly in a way that honors God, can maximize any tool for the glory of God.
Yes, absolutely.
That these are things that can be redeemed and can be used in a way that is healthy and helpful.
Yeah. And I think just in that vein, it can be really easy as well to be like, well, but the Bible didn't talk about social media, so how do I handle it? But the Bible talks plenty about what words we use, what things we see, what interactions we have. Like the principle.
Have you heard my troll answer to that?
No.
I'll say it in a bit.
But like, we should be looking at what those practices are based on our biblical principles and based on like who God has told us to be in our community and who God has told us, you know.
That's right.
So I think sometimes we use that as a little bit of an excuse or a gray area to be like, well, it didn't say. But I think about when I'm scrolling on social media a lot of times, like, what is honorable? What is excellent?
That's right.
What are these things? And so, and the same for what I post, the things that I say. One thing that drives me absolutely bonkers about social media is people's desire to just comment on literally everything that's ever happened. I saw a news story today about this girl who was like a teen driver. She got her permit, and she and her dad were out driving, and she crashed the car, and her dad died. And I'm like, this is terrible. Like, this poor girl, like, she has to live with that for the rest of her life. And I was like, I wonder what the comments say. And some people were like, oh my goodness, like, the trauma, this is so terrible. And then other people were like, just bashing her. Like, that's so awful. Like, people just feel like they can say anything because they're not looking at people face to face. And so those are the moments when, like, it's so easy to say something undercutting to someone when you're not looking them in the eyeballs, you know? And so even things like that, like, are the things that we're saying online honorable and excellent? Are the interactions we're having honorable and excellent? Is my use of time honorable, excellent, good?
Well, it's so fascinating too, because what I choose to do is evaluated by a company that wants to make money. And so I end up in these places where, like, I'm shown posts that I'm likely to comment on. Like every comment that you ever see, like they didn't type in like random search and then found that post and then
Right.
commented. Like it was
Yeah.
put in front of their face because of their activity. They comment on it. And so you end up in these kind of bubbles. And bubbles can be a useful technology in and of themselves. You know, I might want to be in a bubble as a 6-year-old learning about Jesus. I don't want you going to a satanic cult to get the other side. Not going to do that. Social media. I could use social media as a bubble where I'm like, this is a place I go to be inspired by the word and inspired by other Christians. And the algorithms are happy to provide that, but it also will provide, if I show any tendency for like conflict or controversy, it is more than happy to show me everything I'd ever want to comment on. It's so goofy. Now, as far as the Bible and social media, I do just want to point out, and this is a bit of a troll answer, that the Bible was social media. That the New Testament is the most modern form of communication that existed in its time. It was a mass-produced set of letters that were scribed out, and thousands of copies were reposted all over Greece and Jerusalem and Judea, and even unto Rome. My running, and I'm going to ask Paul about this one day, for sure. This is definitely one of my questions when I get to heaven is, all right, bro, would you have had a podcast? I think he would have. I think he would have been live streaming every day of his life across the entire known world if he knew that was an option.
Yeah.
Like I think the early church would have highly engaged in what we right now see as like a technological advancement. Like I can totally see Paul because he used to write about that stuff. You might be saying, Seth, you're making this up. I'm like, I'm serious. He says, bring me my books and my pens and my papers. I want to use technology to get this thing out. I'm writing back. I think he'd have been all about it. I also think he'd yell at us for the way we're using it.
Oh yeah, I would probably say.
He'd model it. He'd do it right. He'd blow Twitter up. It'd be awesome.
But would it be Twitter? Could he be?
What would they have called
succinct? All right, so let's maybe land the plane a little bit. I think there are a lot of resources out there for parents. I would say come by my office and grab this book if you'd like to, and then you can tell me what it says since I haven't read it yet. But things like The Tech Trap, stuff like that are good, even just for knowing what all is out there. I think the crazy part to me about apps is that there's new ones all the time. So like as a parent, you kind of do have to continue to be aware of things that are happening with your kids. And you said this earlier about when you have the internet, you not only have access to the world, but the world has access to you. And I think that's the bigger point, right?
Yes.
We can train our kids and even build in barriers. We can put parental controls. We can do all kinds of different things on their devices, which is wise and good. But we can't necessarily control what their friend has on their phone and what they might get shown and all of the, like, there's so many layers of those things that can happen. But I think having good conversations with our students and our kids to be able to say, hey, this is something I'm doing because I love you and because there are so many pitfalls that you may not even be aware of. Not trying to cramp your style, but I am trying to protect you. And that is a good thing. And I think we as ministry leaders, as adults in the church, like we can model that well and have those conversations and reinforce them too. I know Daniel has talked about technology things. We've talked about that with parents before. It might not be a bad idea to do that again, just for parents that are interested in kind of figuring out how do we navigate this world that's constantly changing, because it is.
That's right. Give your kid the goal. Have a kingdom conversation with your kid. Why do we use the tools that we use? Hopefully, Christians can embrace the idea that we do everything for the glory of God. And so when your child says, I want to do this, a good follow-up question would be like, how do you want to increase the kingdom? How do you want to grow more like Jesus using this tool? That's always the primary. And so where there's Christian liberty to do different things, it never takes us away from that point of like, whatever I'm doing, whether I'm able to do it or not do it, I ought to be trying to do it in a way that glorifies God. As a parent, I've got to be real honest about where my kid's maturity level is.
Right.
If they're not trying to glorify God with the tools that they've been given, I'm going to be I'm going to withhold things that I know will cause harm.
Yeah. And I think to that point, it's not a one size fits all answer.
That's right.
You know, like you might have one kid who is mature enough to handle a cell phone in the 7th grade, and you might have another one that doesn't need one till the 11th grade. You know, like I don't think there's just like a hard and fast set of rules to apply to every kid in every situation.
I would be thinking about power imbalances. And so when you talk about the hardware, a cell phone, a computer, those things are hard matter, right? As a parent, you need to know what's going on inside of the hardware. How are they using the software that's installed onto it? And so my encouragement and a strong encouragement would be your kids should not have access to the internet without your supervision, whether that be through an app that monitors what they're doing, or if you're in the same room, I wouldn't let your kids have technology behind closed doors.
Yeah.
Because again, isolation, it's just simple wisdom and prudence to understand. My job is to help protect and set them up for the most successful moment so that the Holy Spirit, working in conjunction with covenant parents, can help guide that child into good thinking and good acting. If I lock my kid in a room with a tiger, you know, like I should not be surprised when I come in and there's just a tiger in the room.
Yeah.
You know, it's beware of that online interaction. I wouldn't give any kid access to the internet outside of parent supervision. And for teenagers, it would have to be monitored. Like, and you know, honestly, the more I think about it, we've got a lot of good like gamers and tech savvy people. If you ever wanted to get connected with someone who understands the finer workings of the internet, there's plenty of people in our church that we probably could connect you to that would sit down and be like, let me explain what online chat is and where it exists and on what platforms it exists. And oh, by the way, here are the apps that hide the apps. And here are the things that kids do to try and create this secondary place where so much harm and so much hurt can befall them, you know?
Yeah. All right. So a word of encouragement to parents that the technological, can't say words today, world is always changing. Technology in and of itself is not bad, but we are tasked with the responsibility of safeguarding and providing the barriers that help make our kids safe and help them to make right decisions and glorify the Lord in that. And we might have people who have questions or stories, people who have way more information and knowledge than we do. So if you want to go on fairfieldbaptist.com/legacy, you can leave a story. Maybe you've tackled something like this as a parent, or maybe you have a question of something specific that you'd like to know more about. So we'd be happy to hop on and answer those things.
Absolutely. Feel free to reach out to us there. Also, join a life group, begin conversations with grandparents and parents who have walked through similar things. And then don't forget to pray over your children. Your relationship to your child is the primary defense.
Yeah.
God has chosen you. He is empowering you, and you are equipped. You can do this, and it's your kid is lucky to have you. And so stand in the gap for them. And if you have any questions, hit us up at fairfieldbaptist.com/legacy.
Yeah.
Well, I think that's all we got for today, Meryl.
All right. Go
We'll have to
plug
do a
your phone
follow-up
in
part
your
2.
kitchen or something.
That's right. You got to see it, man. This one dude used a samurai sword and like hacked his way in there because his phone was vibrating. He's like, it's a work call. And I'm like, who's filming this? Like,
Yeah.
This is fake.
Why did you put it in there to begin with? Oh, the fake videos?
Oh, I get suckered
I get
in.
so mad.
I get so suckered in. Some of them are so fake, but they're so well rehearsed.
There's also ones though that are like, it's like 5-minute crafts, and they're the worst crafts I've ever seen. I'm like, why do I still get these on my feed? Delete, hide.
I'm such a troll. YouTube was made for me. It is so bad.